In a hidden corner of the world, far from the noise of cities and the rush that empties hearts, there was a serene forest where life unfolded with a rare kind of peace. It was a place where the wind conversed with the leaves, where the sunbeams touched the ground as if offering a caress, and where every creature lived with an almost poetic sense. In this scene, which seemed untouched by time, lived a dragonfly. Small, with a light body and deep blue hue, her short flights were like dances over the green world. She carried no great ambitions nor excessive desires. All she needed was the freshness of the morning, the song of the birds with whom she shared the dawn, and the simple pleasure of landing on the calm waters of the streams. She was friends with the squirrel, who always told silly jokes. She was neighbors with the turtle, with whom she exchanged comfortable silences. And every afternoon she flew aimlessly just to feel the freedom vibrating in her wings. She lived with lightness, and for her that was enough. There was no rush in her existence nor holes in her soul, just a calm heart beating in the same rhythm as the forest, simple, serene, and whole. But sometimes, even in the most perfect places, something unexpected hides in silence, waiting for the right moment to change everything. It was during one of these unassuming flights, when the afternoon was tilting towards the sunset, that the dragonfly saw something she had never noticed before. Between twisted roots and dry leaves, there was a narrow opening, as if the ground had sighed and created a new path. Driven by curiosity, a gentle flame that had always lived within her, she decided to follow through the branches. The forest at this point seemed denser, quieter, as though it was hiding an ancient secret. And there, at the end of the path, the discovery, a small, almost shy spring, flowing water so clear and sparkling that it seemed made of liquid light. The dragonfly landed on the stone's edge, bent her body and drank. The taste was different from anything she knew. It was sweet, intense, and at the same time awakened in her an unexpected euphoria. For a few seconds, she felt larger than the sky, and no matter how hard she tried to explain it, she wanted more. The next day, she returned, and the day after that, and the next. Soon, her routine, once full of free flights, conversations and contemplations, was being replaced by silent visits to that spring. At first, no one noticed her absence. After all, in the forest, everyone was immersed in their own routines. The turtle with its slow walks, the birds with their song rehearsals, the squirrel running between branches. But time, that silent guardian of truth, was accumulating signs. The dragonfly's light laughter no longer echoed through the trees. The meetings by the lake stopped. The spaces where she once hovered now seemed empty. The squirrel was the first to notice. He waited for her in vain during several afternoons until the longing turned into restlessness. The turtle, even without hurried words, felt the absence as though it were an extra stone in the path. The dragonfly herself tried to convince herself that nothing was wrong, but the truth was that something in her heart had shifted. The spring filled a space that had once been occupied by the simple joy of everyday life, and the more she sank into what seemed like pleasure, the greater her thirst became. It was like trying to quench hunger with wind. The sensation passed quickly, and the anguish returned stronger. She no longer flew for freedom, but out of necessity, like someone running without knowing who they're fleeing from. It was in this state of fragility and confusion that the badger appeared. He, who always walked on the fringes of relationships, knew well when a soul was vulnerable. His eyes, sharp and cold, captured what many could not see: the tiredness in the dragonfly's gaze, the hesitation in her flight, the discouragement that weighed more than her wings. He approached with a trained gentleness, one that didn't come from the heart, but from intent. He spoke slowly, with a soft voice, as if offering comfort. He said he understood what she was feeling, that he had gone through something similar, and that perhaps he knew a way to help her break free from that cycle. The dragonfly listened, both confused and relieved. It was the first time in days that someone said they understood her pain. And then came the offer. The badger said he could help her get rid of her thirst in exchange for her wings. "You don't need them anymore," he whispered. "The wings only tire you. Leave them with me, and you will never have to fight the urge to return to the spring again." The dragonfly hesitated. There was a seductive shine in that promise of relief, but even weak, something inside her resisted. She didn't know why yet, but she felt that giving up her wings was more than letting go of flight. It was letting go of who she was. Before she could respond, a soft shadow passed through the treetops and landed with precision between the two. It was the owl. Old, with deep eyes and feathers marked by time, she had a presence that silenced the environment effortlessly. The badger, upon seeing her, immediately stepped back. He knew that gaze, not of threat, but of truth. The dragonfly felt a subtle relief. The owl didn't say much at first. She observed, as though seeing beyond the appearance. Then, she spoke with firmness and compassion. She told the dragonfly that she knew that spring well, that many years before she too had felt the fascination of that water, and she too had gotten lost. She said the pleasure was real but fleeting, and that the price always ended up being higher than it seemed. "Freedom is not the absence of pain, but the presence of choice," she said. "And you still have a choice." She spoke about her own struggle, the setbacks, the dark days, but also about the light. She began to see when she chose to exchange easy pleasure for hard truth. The dragonfly listened to it all with moist eyes. For the first time, someone wasn't offering her an escape, but courage. The decision, however, didn't bring immediate relief. There was no magic, no sudden liberation. When the dragonfly rejected the badger's offer, she didn't feel strong, just scared. It was as if she were at the top of a tall tree, looking down, afraid of falling. In the following days, she tried to avoid the spring. She took different paths, forced herself to seek other streams, but the memory of the sweet taste and the euphoria she once felt was still strong. And when her body trembled and the thought repeated, "Just one sip, just today," she felt like she could give in at any moment. It was during this time that the squirrel appeared, not with prepared speeches, but with presence. He sat by her side even when there were no words. He told silly jokes, shared stories from his childhood, offered seeds and laughter. He didn't cure her thirst, but filled the emptiness with something else, memory. Memory of who she was before the spring. Memory of the days when living was light, not compulsion. And this memory, nurtured day by day, began to awaken something forgotten in her: desire. It was with this silent and constant support that the dragonfly began to take small steps back to life. She still felt the urge to go to the spring, but now she also missed the moments when her soul was light. The squirrel, never pressuring her, remained by her side with his silly stories, his funny gestures, and his attentive gaze, as though caring for something fragile yet valuable. One afternoon, he led her to a hidden lake where they used to play when they were younger. The water was ordinary, without shine, without magic, but there, surrounded by silence and memory, the dragonfly landed, drank, and cried. It wasn't a cry of weakness, but of recognition. She cried for everything she had lost, for the parts of herself she had forgotten, and mainly for still being there, trying. It was at that moment that she understood. Trying was already an act of strength. The road back wouldn't be quick nor easy, but every small gesture, accepting a conversation, flying to a familiar tree, drinking from an old spring, was a real victory, a spark of hope. The following days were not of miracles, but of small rebuilds. Each morning brought the same dilemma: follow the impulse to return to the spring, or resist and seek something deeper. And between setbacks and triumphs, the dragonfly began to realize that life doesn't require perfection. just constancy. There were days when she came too close to the old path, but the sound of the squirrel's voice coming from afar reminded her where her true shelter was. There were days when the memories of the magical feeling of the spring returned as tempting whispers. But then she remembered how she felt afterward. The emptiness, the anguish, the thirst that never ended. Over time, her wings began to beat more firmly. The flight ceased to be escapes and returned to being discoveries. The forest, little by little, reclaimed its place in the dragonfly's heart. And even though she still carried scars inside, she learned to see them as marks from a time when she survived and chose to live. The badger, still lurking, continued to roam the forest paths. He looked for sad eyes, hesitant flights, tired souls. He hadn't changed, and perhaps never would. But now, before the dragonfly, his gaze found no space. She saw him clearly, and more than that, she had learned to protect herself, not with harshness, but with discernment. She knew he would offer shortcuts, conveniences, promises that sounded like music but always came at too high a price. She had already known the depths of herself, and for having returned, she now knew the strength she had. The owl, from time to time, flew over the forest at dusk. She never said anything. She simply watched, with eyes that understand pain and recognize courage. And every time she saw the dragonfly perched on a branch, laughing with the squirrel or admiring the movement of the clouds, she knew there was hope for all who choose to fight. One afternoon, when the sky tinged the forest with gold, the dragonfly flew higher than she had ever flown before. The wings, once tired and almost traded, now beat firmly, propelled not by escape, but by gratitude. From above, everything seemed small, the river, the flowers, even the path leading to the spring. And it was at that moment that she looked at herself with different eyes. For the first time, she didn't see herself as fragile, but as strong. Strong for having felt fear and continued. Strong for having almost given up and still chosen to stay. Strong for not having given up her wings. She landed at the top of an old tree, closed her eyes, and simply felt the wind touch her body like a hug. There was still pain in course, but now there was also peace, and that was enough. She didn't need to understand everything anymore. She just needed to continue living day by day with courage and love. The spring was still there, still flowing the same sparkling water, still trying to seduce with its perfect appearance. But now, the dragonfly knew that not everything that shines serves to quench thirst. She learned to respect her limits, her desires, her choices, and most importantly, she learned to respect herself. She knew that forgetting completely was not possible, nor necessary. Remembering was part of the healing. She didn't need to erase the past, just decide how to walk from it. Every morning when she opened her eyes, she no longer sought the euphoria of the spring. She sought the tranquility of being who she was. She learned that healing is not the absence of pain, but the presence of meaning. And that starting over, even amid stumbles, is one of the most beautiful ways to love oneself. The forest no longer seemed the same, not because it had changed, but because she saw it with new eyes. The birds' songs had a different sound. The flowers seemed more vivid. Even the silence was different, fuller, more whole. The dragonfly discovered that everything she thought was small, an evening flight, the squirrel's laughter, the owl's gaze, was, in fact, immense. That life is not in the grand, fleeting emotions, but in the small gestures that remain. Every reunion, every chosen morning, every step away from the spring was a prayer. And so, little by little, her life returned to being a dance over the green world, as it had been in the beginning, but now with more truth, more awareness, and more light. And maybe that's the great lesson. Not everything that seems magical is good. Not everything that shines offers peace. Sometimes what saves us is not what we want, but what we need. the ordinary water, the honest conversation, the present friend, the silence that listens, the freedom to choose again. The dragonfly understood that living takes courage, courage to face the emptiness, to say no to ease, to build something real with patience. Living takes faith, faith that even when everything seems small, something eternal can bloom. And it is with this faith that she now flies, not to escape, but to find herself. If you are watching this story and somehow saw yourself in the dragonfly, breathe deeply. Maybe you also have a hidden spring inside, one that offers quick relief but takes away your peace. Maybe you're trying to stay away, but feel the urge to return is greater. Know that this doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And every new beginning starts with a simple decision: to keep trying. Even if today is hard, even if tomorrow hurts a little more, there's a new time waiting for you, a new sky for you to fly, and people like the squirrel will be by your side, even in silence, even from afar, cheering for your healing. And now, I invite you to share here in the comments. Have you ever lived something similar to this story? Have you ever felt lost and needed to start over? Your sharing might be the silent support that someone else is waiting for. Let's create together a space of listening, faith, and welcome. Because in the end, we are all dragonflies trying to remember how it feels to fly. May this story touch your heart with the same delicacy with which it was written. And if it touched you, don't keep it to yourself. Or share it. Your word might be the beginning of someone's liberation.